There we go. We're now recording. Okay, so once again, flour your palm, not the counter. Okay, put your palm over, all 5 fingers, heel of your hand down. Hand goes counterclockwise. Bun goes clockwise. Sort of push with your thumb and drag with your fingers. But as I say, don't think about it. Don't think about it at all. Okay, just kind of roll it around and you see how you make a little bun. And with your scraper or your spatula, what you want to do is you want to put them quite close together on a baking sheet. And the reason is, I'll tell you, let me flip this up. The reason why you want them quite close together is when you come to put the piping on for the crosses, you can just go in one big line. You don't have to do one bun, another bun, just one big line and other big lines. So snuggle them quite close together. Okay, now I'm going to show you another way to shape the blob into a bun. This, you need to flour both hands. Very specifically, you need to flour the outside of both hands. Because what you're going to do is you're going to do this. Your action is cupping the dough. So your hands actually meet as you turn the dough, okay? Your hands actually, and if you get sticky, just flour your hands. Okay, so I'm gonna, again, leave the bottom of the bun on the counter and your hands meet like this. So you're wrapping the surface of the dough around itself. And I'll anchor it with my thumb and do a little twist and anchor it with my thumb. So you're not rolling it over, you're rolling it just like this. You're rotating it on the surface. And there you get another beautiful little bun. I'm going to put over here. So I want to just pause there. So I've given you 2 examples. Maybe I'll just do that second one again for you. Get flour in my hands. Here, I'll try and, okay. It's not easy without the cameraman. The cameraman is not what we have today. And again, the hands are coming under. They're meeting at the bottom of the dough ball. And if you find yourself getting sticky, just put more flour on the outsides of your hands. Okay. And you have your bun. So I'm going to pause. Let me pause. And anybody have any questions? Come off of mute if you have a question and let's have a wee chat about it. And if you don't, just carry on shaping your buns. And when all that's done, when I've done mine, I can move on to the people who did the focaccia, the faux-caccia. So are there any questions at all about bun shaping? Pop yourself off of mute if you have a question, because I can't hear anybody just now.
Hi, sorry, I'm Taru here.
Hi, Taru.
Okay, so I have joined only today. Will it be possible for you to share these recipes? So it's nighttime for me in India. I can do this tomorrow morning.
Perfect. Yes, I will, because I forgot to send out the email today. So now I have your email address. I'll send out an email with both of the recipes that we're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, pleasure. Sabine.
Jane, when I do the first method, I find that it goes sort of flat. So I'm doing something wrong.
All right, how about the second method? Can you do it with the second method?
I've tried as well, but then it becomes higher up. So I've got now both. I've done both. I just instinctively, I feel more comfortable with the first method.
Okay, so maybe you're putting too much pressure down with your palm. No pressure at all. Literally, it just touches your palm. You don't push down at all.
Yeah. Okay. And how close together do I put them on the baking?
Show you. So that they touch.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And they don't have to touch. It just makes it easier to do the cross.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to turn. Anyone else have questions? I'm just going to do a few more here. When you get really good at it, if there are any piano players among us, you actually can do 2 at once. And if you're a piano player, which I was as a child, you had to have your left hand and your right hand move differently. So there you go. Just a moment of showing off. Okay. So I've got a few buns there. Now, so you guys carry on rolling your buns. And what I'm going to do is, for the people who did the focaccia, the first thing you want is melted butter in the pan. Okay, so you need to have butter that's melted and cooled. It can't be hot. If it's hot, you'll kill the yeast. So for those of you who are doing the Easter Faux-Caccia, just make sure that your butter is melted and cooled. And if it isn't cooled yet, it cools pretty quickly. So, you'll be like 30 seconds behind. And now I'm gonna get my dough, my Faux-Caccia dough. And again, using my scraper, it's very, very, very light. I'm gonna put it in the tin and roll it around to get butter on it. Yum. You wanna get your butter into the dough. And then just like a focaccia, because I do want it to puff up, I'm gonna do a bit of a fold here, like just a, fold, and I'm going to turn it over. I'm gonna turn it first that way, and this is just you don't have to. It's just about making it fit in the pan, okay? Now, just like making a focaccia, get under it and stretch it out. Just get under it and stretch it out. Okay, because you don't want to push down on it. And that, believe it or not, is it. And I can see air bubbles forming in here. Now, I'm just gonna do one more little stretch. Ooh. Okay, that'll fill the tin. That's it. For your Easter focaccia, that's the sum total of the shaping. And what you want to do is now leave that for probably 20 minutes, maybe 30. And I'm going to show you with this one how I'll pipe the crosses on it now. I wouldn't ordinarily do that, but I'll show you about that. And same with my other ones. Okay, so any questions about shaping the Easter Faux-Caccia? If you have some, pop yourselves off mute. Sabine's on mute. So let me see how your bun's turning out, people. Pop yourselves off of mute if you don't have, if you can. My hands are all buttery.
Sorry, Jane, I do have a question.
Yes.
What size tin did you use for the focaccia?
Okay, so I have a dirty secret. It isn't really. Everybody will be familiar with this Corona problem. So this tin is very small. It's a brownie tin. It's probably 10 inches by 10 inches. I went to the supermarket yesterday to get milk because I only had enough milk to make one batch of hot cross buns. And of course I needed to make 2. There were 20 people lined up outside the supermarket waiting to go in.
Oh gosh.
And it was a really freezing cold day. And I thought, and I guess it's because yesterday the shops were closed and today the shops were closed. So everybody needed to do their shopping. I don't really know. So I'm afraid to say I did not go and get more milk. So this pan is about 10 by 10. It's what I would call a brownie pan. But if you make the full batch, you might want what I would call a lasagna pan, which is rectangular. So it's probably twice as long as this one.
Okay. Did you half the dough for that 10 by 10?
Yeah, I did, literally.
Okay.
And I mean the dough, and Sabine actually wrote to me this morning and said, I'm only going to make half the dough. What do I do about the egg? Because it only calls for 1 egg. So you actually can do half an egg, believe it or not. Eggs weigh about 100 grams.
Okay.
If you only wanted half an egg, you could beat the egg, weigh it, and then literally take half of the weight. But to be honest, you can whack a whole egg in. It's not going to make a big difference.
So how much did an egg weigh, did you say? That's good to know.
They weigh about 100 grams. But they're big eggs. They're big eggs.
So I can
sorry,
tell you
Sabine?
at the end what it's come out like.
Okay, so Sabine put a full egg in. Eggs weigh about 100 grams when they're out of the shell. So, but I mean, eggs do come in small, medium, and large. So that's an approximation. But it's kind of interesting.
Okay. So how many would that feed, would you say, the 10 by 10 one with half the dough?
How hungry are you? So it could feed 4 with very nice big pieces, or you could get away with feeding 6 with rather smaller pieces.
Okay.
And anything below 6, people would fight over it, I think. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, oh, look at those beautiful buns. Whose are those?
Mine.
Sabine, good job. Anyone else?
Whoa.
Let's see your buns, peeps. Arf, arf. You have to make a noise to let me, I have to wash my hands. I can't touch my screen. Hang on.
You have to mute yourself, Jane.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, wonderful. Look at that. How beautiful. Those are marvelous. Whose are those?
I think Julie and Grace.
Those are just splendid. Here we go, participants. Those are great. And here we go. Let's see. I see it. I see children. Hello, children. And I see Jeanette Martin's cabinets. Jenny, how you doing? Mary Ellen, you're on mute. Are you joining us from the comfort and safety of your own bed? Mary Ellen's on mute. I can't hear you, Mary Ellen.
Here I am. This is my whatever. Faux-Caccia.
That's excellent. And listen, we have people from Canada and England and India. Isn't that an amazing mixture of people? And possibly the US if Christina's here today. And Jeanette, Canada, we've got down east. Wave, Jeanette. Jeanette's from down east. Oh, okay. And Anne-Marie, how are you doing? You're on mute. What do your buns look like? Let's see your buns. Hold them up. Hold up your buns proudly. There's so many jokes that one could say about that. Anne-Marie, you're on mute. There you are.
Oh, I still have a half an hour to wait for it.
Oh, okay. So you haven't made them yet. Okay, that's all right.
Yes.
Okay. So what I want to do now for people who, now I'm just going to show you, and I'll kind of sacrifice mine. When you've rolled all your buns, pop a tea towel over them, just the lightest tea towel you can find. Not plastic wrap because it will probably stick to them. So just a tea towel, and let them rest for a good 45 minutes. So we're not going to be here for that whole time, but just let them rest for 45 minutes. And same, you know, the Faux-Caccia, it can also rest for 45 minutes if you want it to. But what I wanted to show you is, you know, I'll kind of do the crosses on mine before they're quite ready. And what you want to do is you want to do the crosses, pipe the crosses if you can be bothered, before you put them in the oven, but just before you put them in the oven. So the crossing mixture is, and I'll send out the recipe, it's flour, a little bit of oil, baking powder, and water. So this is just the dry ingredients. Let me get the water in here. And I need 3 tablespoons, so hang on. I didn't want to do that ahead of time. And it's pretty viscous. You need it to be pretty viscous, but not, I mean, you need to be able to squeeze it out of a piping bag. So if your flour is very, 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 very dry, you might need a bit more than 3 tablespoons, which I do. Like mine is ragged. So I'm going to put in another tablespoon of water.
How much water did you say?
It's about 50 grams, 50.
Okay.
But you may find that you need more, okay? And you, as I say, you've got to be able to pipe this, but it can't be sloppy. It has to be pretty thick. Okay, so I'm just mixing mine together here. And you may as well mix it now and let it rest. Okay, it will make it easier to pipe if you let it rest. Sorry, I should have done that to mine. And to pipe it onto your hot cross buns, either you can have, you know, something fancy like a piping bag, if you have one at home with a really narrow nozzle, or if you don't, plastic bag. Snip off the corner. So I'll show you that now. I mean, literally, I'm going to snip, tiny little snip, off the corner of my plastic bag. It has to be a fairly sturdy plastic bag. And throw this in to the corner. Okay. Now, if you're piping onto your Faux-Caccia, be mindful of where you're going to cut it, right? Because you want to have a cross in the middle of each square or rectangle of Faux-Caccia. So just think, how am I going to cut these? You might want to draw some imaginary cutting lines and then do your piped crosses, you know, where it makes sense. So literally, to pipe onto the Faux-Caccia, I'm going to turn this down. Let me do the buns first, actually. Hang on. So don't do your buns, right? You want to let the buns rise, but I'm kind of sacrificing mine. So I'll just show you. So you want to let the buns rest for 45 minutes before you pipe the crosses on. But just, you know, it's this. And it's, you know, plastic bag isn't 100% brilliant because it's not as controllable as a piping bag, but it does, you know, it kind of does the job. Okay. And then squeeze it down. Come on. I've got a blob of flour in the way. Okay.
Did you say that we need to put oil as well as flour and water?
Yeah, it's flour, water, a little bit of oil, and here we go, and baking powder.
All right, how much oil and baking powder do you recommend?
Okay, so I'll give you the recipe. It's 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of water, a pinch of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of oil.
Great, thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, so carry on with your piping bag. Okay, come on. Okay. Okay. So this is going to rise. These will look a bit wonksville when they bake, but that's fine. Okay, so what you've got here, whoops, we'll do a little bit of remedial piping. Okay, is your piping over your buns. But as I say, wait until they rise. So I'm now going to let those rise, and they look super. So I'm just going to pop them here. And then, as I say, if you're doing the Faux-Caccia, imagine where you're going to be cutting it to make sure that there's a cross in the middle of each square or rectangle. So, you know, I'll leave that one for now. Now, there's only one last thing that we need to talk about, which is glaze. Because you do want to, when your buns come out of the oven, you glaze them. And what I use is the water in which I soaked the raisins. I boil it down to make a syrup. And so it's really nice and thick, tastes nice, nice color. And you just get a little pastry brush and you take the buns out of the oven and immediately glaze them. And then put them on a rack to cool off. And you can, of course, glaze them on the rack, but it gets a bit messy underneath the rack because it's bound to be spillage dripping. So, hot cross buns, 3 things. One is very sticky dough. So you can either shape the Faux-Caccia, which is very, very easy. It's a no-knead dough, and it's super easy to shape, and it tastes delicious. The other one is you can shape the buns. Okay, do the kneaded dough, shape the buns. Remember, flour the palm of your hand, little bird cage, and rotate your hand like this. Don't push down, just shape it into a ball. And number 3, let them rise. Let all of your dough rise, probably now, for a good half an hour, maybe 20 more minutes. Oven on to, what am I baking them at? To 200 Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. You always bake buns at quite a high temperature because they're small. You want them to get brown. You want them to bake. the ideal bun, the bun is brown, the cross is white, ideally. You know, if your crosses go a bit beige, you will be forgiven, I am sure. And so check it, okay? It's like, check after 15 minutes, see how they're doing. Usually it's about 18 for me, but that's my oven. Check after 15, it could be as much as 20. It's probably not gonna be any more than 20. And then when they come out of the oven, glaze them either with your raisin water, or you can do equal amounts of sugar and water to glaze them and just boil it right down. Very, very, very low heat at first. Sugar's funny. If there's even one crystal of sugar that is still in existence when the rest of it begins to boil, it will recrystallize the whole lot. So super low heat, stir, stir, stir until there isn't even a single crystal of sugar. Then you can boil it to reduce it into a syrup. You could also just do like a blob of jam and thin that down with water and simmer that to make a thick syrup and put that all over your buns. So lots of different options for a glaze. But these buns are glazed when they come out of the oven rather than before they go in. So that's like the hot cross bun recipe today, because everybody needs to wait for their buns to rise and then they need to be baked. So how are people feeling? Any questions at all? From Janet. Jane, okay, Janet says, I've made mine with sourdough, bit of an experiment. They're in the oven. Okay. Oh, okay. So Janet made hers with sourdough, which is great. Actually, I have a recipe on the Virtuous Bread website. The only thing when you're doing sourdough is everything takes longer. That's the only thing that matters, is that every step in the process, it takes longer. It takes longer for the bulk fermentation, takes longer for the individual bun rise, because sourdough, natural yeast, is less powerful than commercial yeast. And that's the only difference. They should be equally light and fluffy. They should be equally delicious.
They're in the oven at the moment, so hopefully they'll come out, because I started last night.
Yeah?
So hopefully they'll come out right. I'll show you them very shortly.
Sorry, that's my phone going, so I couldn't. So you started them last night? Great. Well, I mean, longing to see what they look like.
Okay, they're in the oven at the moment, so yeah, there should be about 3 minutes or so.
Oh my God. Well, I will stay on this call to see what they look like.
Super. Thanks, Jane. It's been absolutely fab, this.
Well, don't go away. Please stay on the line so I can look at your beautiful hot cross buns. Does anybody else have any questions? I will send the recipe around. If you are not on the Virtuous Bread mailing list, and Taru, I know you're not, but I'll put you there, please email me and let me know so that, you know, I can kind of effectively get you everything you need. And so before I just ask my one last question, is everybody's cool with this? You're happy? You've got your buns ready to go in the oven?
Do we need to score the focaccia, sorry? Do we need to score the focaccia into, you know, like squares, before going
No,
in?
no, just cut it. When it comes out of the oven, just cut it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Anyway. You said that there's other options for glazing. What were they again, Jane?
Okay, so you can do lots. You can do a sugar syrup.
Yeah.
As I say, I boil the raisin water. You can take some jam of your choice, or jelly of your choice, and put it in a little pot with a few tablespoons of water, and melt it so that it's thinner than jam, and you can use that as a glaze. That's a great glaze.
Marmalade?
Probably a bit chunky.
Okay. Even if you put a bit of water in it and melt it down like the jam?
Yeah, you could try marmalade. I mean, I've never tried it with marmalade, and it would have an interesting textured effect as a glaze. You know, I think it sounds good.
Honey?
You can use honey. You can melt down honey and use honey for sure.
Okay.
Tends to lose its gloss, whereas the raisin water tends to stay shiny for some reason. But that's okay.
You said to put the cross on just before baking?
Yeah.
Okay. And to check the baking, could you test the bottom like you do with bread, or is that not necessary? Do you just go by the colour?
You can test the bottom like you do it with bread. You can also stick a probe thermometer up their bum, as it were. But you know, to be honest with you, I think you'll know by the color.
Okay. And if you was to test the bottom, should it sound hollow?
Yes, yeah, it will do. I mean, the raisins run a bit of interference, but it shouldn't sound like, you know, mashed potato in a Tupperware.
Okay.
Oh wait! Oh, look what's come out of the oven. Oh no! Look what's being held up. Janet, you've gone away. You need to make noise.
No, it's a bit spurious. So it's my sourdough ones.
What happened? What happened to them?
How do they look? They look good.
They look
all right.
amazing.
They're
Are
a
they?
bit, they're a bit flat. They're not quite as high as yours are.
Well, I think there are a couple things. So I think they could be, maybe they were, you could shape them more strongly next time.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So make sure it's a much tighter shape. And the other thing is maybe bake them in a tray that has sides.
Yeah.
You know, so they're all squished in and they don't have anywhere to go. So if you snuggle them into a tray that has sides, that will keep them upright.
Okay. And then I've glazed them with date nectar.
With what kind?
Date nectar.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a wonderful idea.
The agave. I use agave.
Agave, yeah, agave syrup.
Yeah, agave. Yeah.
Yeah, yummy.
Yeah. I've put chocolate in them with mixed peel and ginger.
Sounds amazing. That sounds like a wonderful bun, actually.
We'll see how they turn out.
The healthy option, because there's not enough chocolate today.
That's lovely. Thank you.
So what would anybody, I was thinking for next week's COVID Cookalong, we could do another kind, do people like this idea of doing buns? We could do another kind of bun that's shaped in a slightly different way. Jenny, this is really your idea of doing the cut side buns. Jenny's
love
not
cut side buns. They're so cool to make, and they make amazing sandwiches.
Yeah, they do. Okay, so we'll do another kind of bun next time, and this time I'll make sure I send out the email to everybody. And that's it, folks. That's it, folks. I think we're ready to go. Good luck with your baking. Good luck with your crossing. And look out for the email. And Taru, I'll make sure you get it for doing a different kind of bun technique next time. Yeah?
What was the name of the bun then?
Well, it's actually a Swedish bun, and it really, the literal translation is cut side bun. Snitt sidan bullar. And you'll see why when you join us next week.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much.
Okay. Taru, I hope to see you next week too.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, all.
Bye.
Sorry, Jane, I have one final question.
Yeah, tell me.
When you ice them, you put them really close together on the baking tray.
Yeah.
You don't have to move them apart for baking.
No, leave them
when they're touching.
together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Could we do Belgian buns one time?
Yeah, for sure. Just email me to remind me, because at this stage, I'm going to wash my hands and carry on. I won't remember. So email me.
Okay. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Same to you all. Bye-bye.
Jen, talk to you
Lovely
soon.
to see you all.
See
Thanks
ya.
so much,
Yeah, see
Jane.
you, Dean. See you then. Oop, I have to wash my hands before hanging up. Jane, can you add me to the Janet? Talk to me. Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jane, I'll drop you an email, Jane.
Perfect.
The original one, but not the next one. So
Great.
brilliant. Thank you very much. Happy Easter.
Sorry, Jane.
Yeah.
How long did you bake the focaccia for? Is it the same time?
Yeah, it's probably about, let me just look. Hang on, let me check. Hold on, I'll be right there. Lovely bird song, somebody. I'm saying, bake for Oh, 30. With the focaccia, I would say half an hour.
Okay.
And
And should
if
it
it's a
just,
big one, it may take longer. It may take 40 minutes.
okay, so for the one that you've baked in the 10 by 10, 30 minutes.
I would have thought so, yeah.
Okay, marvellous. And it should look the same as the other buns.
Well, no, it doesn't because it's not round buns. So it bakes as a square and you cut it into squares.
But the colouring should be the
Oh,
same.
yeah. The color.
Marvellous.
Marvelous.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jane. I'm
That's
glad
a
we had a
pleasure.
big group. That was marvellous.
Oh, great. So nice to see you. See you next week.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye. Hello. No. Is mommy feeling miserable?
No, she's just tired. You're making, and she'd probably like to watch.
Oh, there's. She could do, but I'm kind of done. I'm just gonna.
We do have a pastry cutter.
Yeah, I had to demonstrate without for those what don't have one, and it's not that. Precise. Oh, no. Okay, done.
Done. So now you have to bake it.
Yeah, I have to wait for a bit. They need to rise. I'll stick them here. And put on a timer. Huh?
She finished.
Looks like it's finished.
Oh, it's finished. Good Lord.
Hello.
Hello. That's so funny.
We've only just picked up your email, so we thought we'd see if you were still going.
I know. It's so funny. And I'm so sorry. I'm such a complete bloody wally. The email was ready and I just didn't press send last week.
Ah.
So I'm afraid we're over because it was a case, we literally ended about 5 minutes ago. Everybody shaped their buns, crossed their buns. So I can show you my buns that are ready for the oven.
Oh,
wow.
Oh,
Lovely.
So I'm so sorry about that, but I will send out the email with the recipes.
Excellent.
And this was recorded. So, you know, the whole back, you know, last half an hour is probably quite deeply dull. But the first bit, when we're shaping the buns, may be worth watching.
Okay, we might do that then.
So I will make sure that I send out the email for next week. I will do that as soon as possible.
What are you doing next week?
So we're going to do something called a cut side bun, which is a Swedish bun. And it's dough that's shaped in a particular way. And then literally you cut it. And that way they stay flat. Like they're not round buns, they're flat. And if you think of, I don't know if you've been to Sweden, but kind of think about a Swedish bakery or a sandwich shop, and they have these rather flat, seedy buns. And that's how they make them. So it's a particular shaping technique.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, so sorry. I'm such a wally, but I'll make sure it goes out today.
We were just on another call
Ah,
in the last hour, and we just turned it off and noticed your email there.
So,
I know. Well, I'll send over the recipes and the link to the recording, and I'll send out next week's as well.
Okay,
Right.
that's cool.
thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Oh, it's really raining.